I don't believe in public utilities. I think they should all be privatized. MECO is a great example of this. Since when is it a good idea to create monopolies and have one company have the right to produce all power? That doesn't make sense. Monopolies are supposed to be bad things, and yet every true monopoly that has ever existed is government created.
Every one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go to Standard Oil. I mean, we can, if that's probably the big one that a lot of people would point to. But if we have time, I'd be happy to talk about that.
You know what? This is a show about issues. And for me, being a novice on this show, not understanding issues, I want to know, what's the big deal with Standard Oil?
Okay, so Standard Oil's biggest crime was that they saved the whales by dropping the price of kerosene down to a level that normal, read poor, because most people were poor back then. Normal people could buy kerosene. And so what he did with it, Mr. Rockefeller did, he had a vertically integrated corporation, and he was able to reduce costs to the point where the public could afford kerosene. So they no longer had to buy whale oil. And what happened is his competitors, and these are all large corporations, Shell, Texaco, they lobbied the government and said, hey, Standard Oil is getting too big. They're selling kerosene for too cheap. We don't like that. They're ruining our profits. So this cartel got together and lobbied the government and had them break apart Standard Oil. Even when Standard Oil didn't actually do anything wrong and they weren't a monopoly. They only had like 10% market share in California. In Texas, they had like 20% share.
Whoa.
And their market share was already reducing by the time they were broken up.
At what point? No, dumb math here. But I'm thinking 10% and 20% isn't a majority. And a monopoly, by definition, is a majority control of something. How can you say a corporation had a monopoly on something when they control less than half of the interest?
That's a good question. And what happened is these other large corporations who were competitors, they lobbied the government and said, hey, Standard Oil's too big. They're affecting our profits. You need to take them down. And that's how government works. People who have the most influence and the most pull can spend money and lobby the government and then use the power of government to force out their competitors out of the market.
Okay, so that basically means that things are more of a litigation versus a personal motivation at that point.
Yeah, and to give you a local example, there was a company who wanted to build a private hospital in Kihei a while back, and they needed this thing called a certificate of need, which basically, I guess it comes from the state, and the argument there was that, if we build this hospital in Kihei, then it's going to take away jobs and support from Maui Memorial. Well, who cares? That's how the free market works, That would be like saying, hey, we can't open this Wendy's over here because this McDonald's over here might do poorly. So what? More competition and more products and more options is a good thing.
Okay, well, question of the day here. Once again, playing completely dumb. I understand that Hawaii has a process called the Certificate of Need. Mm-hmm. I understand that we're one of the very few states that has something called a Certificate of Need. What, by definition, in the hell is a Certificate of Need?
That's what I want to know, too, because I've been looking into that, and I can't figure out why anybody would think this is a good idea. Why a private business using their own money has to get permission from the government to open up a hospital. This makes no sense whatsoever to me.
Okay, so dumb question once again. Is a hospital a public company, like, subsidized by the government, or is a hospital, at the end of the day, a private enterprise?
I mean, I think there are public hospitals, but I think, they should all be privatized. Because the free market does a much better job at delivering goods and services more efficiently than the government can ever hope to.
Okay, so on a state and county level, would you say that it would behoove Hawaii to rethink what a Certificate of Need is? Because here it is, I figure I'm a pretty smart and intelligent guy. You dressed very smart and intelligent guy, possibly better looking than me. But think about it. Is this something that we as a state should really sit down and go, do we need this?
No, absolutely not. There's no reason to have a certificate of need whatsoever.
Okay. So now that's one thing. Now on the county level, the elections that we're coming into, do you say that there's anybody out there that even knows, as far as who's running, that even knows what a certificate of need is? Like if I threw the number out there, 877-6363, and says, please, dear God, if you know what a certificate of need is, can give us a great, honest answer, call. Do you think anybody running would know?
I hope so, because I'd like to ask them.
I would too. I mean, I really would. But okay, moving on from certificate of need and the fact that, as I understand it, our medical care on Maui is pretty poor, would you say?
I'm not too sure about that. Okay. I use the VA for my personal care, and my family, they use Maui Medical, but I mean, it seems kind of normal to me, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
is it poor?
Well, that's what I'm saying. By the numbers, if you look at it, and I don't have exact numbers out in front of me because, as you can see, I don't have anything in front of me. Our interns are controlling the show. All right. But honestly, I don't have the numbers in front of me. But the last time that I looked up any figures for healthcare on Maui, our primary hospital is over 100% capacity on a normal operating day. That means that at any one time, if you're sick and you go to the hospital for care, there's a good chance that there's not a facility there to treat you. Now, I know you go to the VA, and the VA has a big scandal that they're already dealing with this year, and trust me, we could do a whole show about the VA thing. It is ungodly scary. But would you say that Maui County, as far as healthcare is concerned, are we safe?
Well, that seems like a natural consequence of eliminating all your competition and forcing other hospitals not to be built. Of course, you're going to have, overcapacity in the one hospital that we do have. That's that's logical. If you ban other hospitals from being built or constructed, and you force out your competition from the marketplace, of course you're not going to be able to meet demand. When does government ever meet demand?
That's a good question, actually. So, health-wise, we're not meeting the demand. We don't know if we're meeting the demand. And to greater meet the demand, we have to go through a process that nobody in this room, all smart and intelligent and good-looking, can define. Oh, God. Oh, man. I have never choked up a guest on this show, by the way. Welcome to the first time. It's okay, man. Every so often we have coughs in here. But let's move on from healthcare, all right? Because we've got tons and tons of issues to go through on Maui. Next big issue.
If I could, and if there are any viewers out there, I challenge everyone here to go Google right now the Surgery Center of Oklahoma to get a good example of what a free market healthcare system looks like. They post their prices proudly. Have you ever wondered why you don't know what the price of something is when you go to the doctor? You can't just ask them, okay, I want to get knee surgery. How much is that going to be? Why is there no price competition? Think about it. Go to the website and check it out.
Well, some would argue that the reason that hospitals don't print their prices is because we live in a double standard when it comes to healthcare in this country as a whole. There is a price for the insured because the ones with the better insurance, they know they're going to pay, they're charged a higher premium. People that come in and are dealing with cash, some hospitals
cut the price
That's
down. What a free market is, though. This big, huge insurance scheme that we got in this country just doesn't work. They're able to charge $30,000 for a procedure that might cost like $5,000 or less.
Well, this is why a lot of countries, let's say Canada, let's say the United Kingdom, UK, England, whatever you want to call it, the place where Doctor Who lives, they all have socialized healthcare. We have a broken healthcare system in this country, and I know we're jumping from county to a national issue here, but kind of important. At the end of the day, at least in anybody that's somewhat educated in how healthcare works in general, at the end of the day, the slippery slope that we're on is only going to lead eventually to us being a one payee to the hospitals type of system, which means socialized healthcare. Would you say this is the eventuality?
Yeah, I mean, I think Obamacare was designed to fail, actually. I don't, I mean, if you look at it, all it has been is a huge handout to the insurance companies. It's corporatism at its worst. It just gave them a lot of money to squander and keep. And it's not going to work, you know, and I think by design even, the reason for that was to push us into a single payer, which ironically would be better than what we have now.
Yeah,
even though I'm against government medicine, single payer would still be better than what we have now.
Yeah,
you know, ironically.
I know, because at that point everything is out in the open. Only one person is going to pay you at the end of the day, and that one person wants to know what you're charging. So jumping back to the example that you led about this Oklahoma center, they print all of their prices for the procedures. Are there, in those prices, two different rates, one for insured and one for uninsured?
Nope, it's one level cash price.
That's it?
Yeah,
okay.
Just like that. And they proudly display all their prices, and they're the first one to do it. They've been open since 2000, or they've been doing that since 2009. The way it started was there was two doctors, and they worked for like one of the, you know, just some regular hospital, and they decided to open up their own little surgery center. And then what happened is they just started competing. They kept underbidding each other, and it was just a competition. That's what free market competition is about. And they just kept underbidding each other to the point where they came up with a system where, hey, let's just display our prices and allow for people to choose. You know, people often vote with their wallets, and they say, oh, well, I can afford that. Well, I can't afford this. You know, with our current system, we can't do that because they don't display their prices, and their prices have absolutely no relation to the procedure that they're performing. None whatsoever.
Yeah, well, there is a lot of pork worked into our healthcare, and of course, at the end of the day, us being the end consumers, we don't get to see all of those numbers. What's the advantage, though, in healthcare of encouraging, let's just bring it back down to the Maui County example, what is the advantage at the end of the day for Joe Schmo out in the street if I bring in another urgent care or another hospital to Maui County?
Think about it. They have to compete for customers, so obviously everyone is going to want to have the best service at the lowest price. This is obvious. This is logical. This is economical. They have to compete for customers. And yeah, if you live closer to Maui Memorial, you're probably more likely to go there, unless there's something about the service in the other hospital that is so much better that it would draw you over there, and vice versa.
Okay.
You know, but competition is always good.
Okay, so competition is good, but at the end of the day, do you really have to make any adjustments to bring in another urgent care or another hospital here as far as how we are laid out on Maui and how our system is laid out currently?
Do you have to make...
Yeah, is there going to be a lot of drama in the litigation and zoning and all of the permits and things like that? Is there so much drama to bring in another hospital that the red tape outweighs the advantage of actually going through the process? And this is aside from the certificate of need stuff.
Yeah, government is the only thing that is really standing in the way. If it weren't for the government, we'd probably already have a hospital here. It's just so hard to get it done, because then people, they can be like, oh, well, people at Maui Memorial are going to lose their jobs, or they're going to have to move, and then we're going to have to find replacements. So what? That's how the free market works.
Okay, well, on the other side of that, though, if you had more medical centers and stuff like that, we have Maui College here. They do have medical programs. These people, once they get educated, we're talking about a very small work environment that they can go into, and a lot of them are going to end up leaving the island just to find employment.
Exactly. I categorically reject economic protectionism. This idea was refuted centuries ago by Adam Smith, Frederick Bastiat. They exposed the stupidity of trying to protect certain jobs. When we protect certain jobs, all we're doing is stifling innovation in other areas.
Wow. So what we think is being smart, protecting something, in the long run, is actually restricting and limiting, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it. I can give you another example. Well, let's take healthcare, for example. As you said, the people graduating from UH, they could go to this hospital that is potentially going to be built either in Lahaina or Kihei or whatever. They could either go there or they could go off island. But if we restrict, if that hospital never gets built, for sure they're going to have to leave because there's nowhere else for them to go.
Okay. Now, oh God, I know we're right ahead of the break here.
To give you the historical example that Frederic Bastiat used, or to give you another modern day one, when the automobile was invented, a lot of people were worried, like, oh, all these people making horses and carriages, they're all going to lose their jobs. And they did, but they also, a lot of jobs were opened up. Now you're building automobiles, so you don't have to keep that same job. You know, jobs come and go.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing that is inevitable is change.
Yes.
Okay.
We should embrace change. We shouldn't be afraid of it. You know, that's the part I don't understand.
Trust me, neither do I. And I have a show to host. So here's the thing, though. Before we go into this break, and bringing it back down to Maui County issues, I kind of want to throw one more issue into the mix before we hit the break. And go ahead and throw out the number once again. If you would like to join our show, you're listening in your car, perhaps you're driving around at your house. No, that doesn't work at all. Perhaps you're sitting in front of your house, because if you're driving, watching television, please, dear God, pull over. You're going to hurt somebody desperately. I mean, 877-6363. If you want to call in and tell us what is the biggest issue on your mind as far as the next election that we are going through, 877-6363. One of those issues that is always on the ballot, always, is taxes. Now, out of all of the things that we talk about tax, what tax this year has made the most difference in people of Maui County?
Are you referring to the TAT one? Is that
the TAT?
Yeah.
There's a TAT tax?
Or is that what? I don't remember the terminology. The one where we got money back from the state, which took from the hotels in the first place.
Oh, so
I think it's like transient accommodation or something like that. Is that
the transient accommodation tax, which is a special tax that is levied against hotels and resorts to encourage tourism and also to take that money and reinvest in tourism? Yeah, TAT. That's the biggest one this year?
Well, I don't know. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, no, I was asking as far as your opinion, what is the one biggest tax this year, or at least the one changeable one, that everybody should be thinking about?
That at the mayor's budget proposal for increased property taxes?
There's an increased property tax?
Well, here was the thing. They said if we didn't get the correct percentage back from the TAT, which they wanted to modify, like each county wanted to get more money back from the TAT tax, right? Mm-hmm. And in the mayor's budget proposal, he said that if we don't get this money back, then we're going to have to raise taxes by this percentage, which I categorically reject all of that altogether. You know, I don't believe that we have to have $1 billion, you know.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're coming up on a break right now, so something to think about. We've been talking about taxes, which is, in a term, take. In a second, when we get back, I want to talk about give, which is some of the issues that services that are provided by government out to the population, and, well, which ones that we should be rethinking. Is that okay?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
All right. Here's the deal. 20 seconds ahead of our break, and I'm going to throw out this number one more time. 877-6363. Today's show is all about issues, not mine, yours. What issues you have in the next election. If you'd like to be on the show, 877-6363. We can take calls, and in just a sec, we'll return with more of Bronson and the Big Issue Show.
Did you know? These 6 major corporations control 90% of the media in North America. AKU is public access TV, run by the people, for the people. AKU is Maui County's agent of free speech and community media. Federal laws require cable companies to provide financial support for all public access programming. AKU is your public access resource, and we're open 5 days a week. Community members can learn to use the equipment and tools needed to exercise their free speech, It's easy, too. Now you know.
At AKU's Maui Community Television, we are committed to employing your access to media. Our goal is to certify community producers that will go out and create meaningful and local content for our viewing community. AKU's Media Lab now offers classes in Apple Final Cut Pro 10, professional editing software. This class will cover basic editing skills and Final Cut Pro's 10 systems available at AKU. With a maximum of 8 students to every instructor and 1 student per editing system, students will receive intimate and hands-on training.
Hey, you're back! Woo! Welcome back to the TV audience. You can watch the show, of course, live every single day from 5 to 6. Joining me in the studio, of course, is my honored guest, Bronson, who I've brought in as Issues Man. And we've talked about take. Take is always the taxes. And, of course, everybody's like, why are they always trying to take from us? But let's talk about give. And this is how governments actually spend the money that we invest into them through our taxes. On the ballot this year, lots of candidates out there, lots of different economic views. However, the economy only functions one way, so we're going to try to keep things simple here. I'm going to lay out a very basic question. What's the one thing we as a county recklessly spend the most money on?
You always try to narrow it down to one thing. I mean, I could talk all day about we waste money on everything, really. I mean, the budget's too big.
I'll tell you what, let's do it like this. Give me your top 5 right now of things that we are overspending on.
Well, all right, top 5. 1, the drug war. That needs to be ended immediately. A lot of things going on with Homeland Security are basically completely unnecessary and don't keep us safe. But then again, we get money from the federal government too. So,
well, as you know, as throwing this out here for a county level issue, the federal government does pay the TSA. The TSA here on Maui supports a lot of people. There's a lot of TSA employees that are full-time residents of Maui. So when you talk about these top big issues, you said number 2 would be, of course, Homeland Security and how we're doing this whole thing.
I mean, on a national level, I'd abolish Homeland Security completely.
Okay, but let's just talk about the TSA here, because this one was kind of interesting. Homeland Security, okay, yeah, let's say we get rid of it, but as government entities do from time to time, they evolve. We no longer have the U.S. Army Air Forces. We have the United States Air Force. Things evolve. Sometimes they break off and take a life of their own. We abolish Homeland Security on a national level, and we say, you know what? Still at the airports, we're going to have federally mandated TSA agents. Question. Big question here. Are we safer with TSA agents versus private enterprise patrolling our airports?
I don't think so. I think TSA should be privatized too. That's another government function that should be privatized. The reason I say that is because government is incompetent. They couldn't keep us safe even if they wanted to. The government is always too... And I served in the Army, so I know how a bureaucracy can turn something that might be a good idea and dumb it down to below stupid, and then it comes to the point where it's not doing anything useful.
Wow, that actually sounds a lot like this show's host. Dumbed down to the point of uselessness. Boy, that's depressing. All right, but we've said that, yeah, okay, this thing is kind of out there, but going back to, if I'm looking at this from a jobs and a market kind of relationship, let's say that I do abolish an entity like the TSA, how am I going to encourage a private enterprise to come into this area and pick up where they left off? Is that something that's done at a county level?
Well, think about this. The airport has an interest in being safe. You know, you want to attract visitors and you want to convince people who come here that they're flying into a safe airport. And the same thing goes for the airlines. They want to convince their customers that they are a safe airline and they have good security. So they have an economic incentive to have a secure place and one that's free of terrorists.
Well, in other countries, let's say like Israel, you go in, you land in an airport, there is camoed, full automatic weapons ready to go at a second notice, military personnel guarding those airports. A lot of people say they feel safer in those areas because of the amount of uniformed, well-armed individuals. Some say it's very intimidating, very scary, and I would not like to return to that place. At the end of the day, is this something practically that America could do? Instead of a TSA entity, we use the entity, homeland, that we already have existing, which is the United States military.
I'm generally loath to use military situations or military solutions to civilian situations because I don't think they're ever a good mix. I think the Posse Comitatus Act was a good thing. I think it's bad when we start involving the military in local law enforcement and things of that nature. I think private security is generally more efficient. I mean, if you look at like Blackwater, for example, or other contractors, they're well trained. I mean, to say that they're not as trained as the military is not true. You know?
Well, a lot of people say that. Well, a lot of people don't even know what Blackwater is. Let me briefly explain for those that don't. Blackwater, private mercenary.
They're Z Corp now. They had to change their name because they got kicked out of Iraq.
Kind of the same thing happened to me in college. I used to have another name. Now I'm Shaggy. All right. But Blackwater is a private security firm. Some people would call them mercenaries. Other people would call them contract soldiers.
They're essentially mercenaries. I mean, that's what they are.
Yeah, contract soldiers. They're hired to go in and clean up messes that armies are too dirty or politically they don't want to get involved with. Okay. So when companies like that exist, this is a function of government in most people's mind, going out, causing wars, enforcing security on foreign shores. If we start privatizing something like that, and are already privatizing something like that, why is it that we have such a hard time as a society looking at other things to privatize, do you think?
Well, you have to understand, it's really hard to convince somebody whose job depends on the government that they should privatize. For example, in the military, I can't tell you how many friends and colleagues I've alienated by saying that we need to reduce military spending substantially. You know, not just a little bit. I'm talking about like cut it in half or more. We spend way too much money on the military. The military has gotten way too big. We outspend the next 10 countries combined. I mean, people don't really have a good perspective on the world. If you ask somebody, how many aircraft carriers do you think the United States have? They might give you, some number. Then you say, oh, well, how many do you think Russia has or China? They'll give you a number that sounds similar. When in fact, the United States has 11 aircraft carriers, and 7 of those are super carriers, which means they're massive. They're huge carriers. Russia has 1. China has 1. Great Britain has 1. France has 1. So even just our allies have more aircraft carriers than our supposed enemies. Iran doesn't have one, for example.
Yeah.
So China, Russia, that's the two big ones. They have 2. Together with our allies, we have like 15 or 16. You know what I mean? And if you add in aircraft, submarines, it just gets even more ridiculous. The United States is by far the largest military. I mean, no other country even comes close.
Okay, now taking this down from a national issue, let's bring it all the way back down to a county issue. And now we're talking about simply, in essence, dollars for security. Would you say that Maui County in itself, or at least the government that currently runs Maui County, or any government in general, let's just say, as Maui County, do we overspend on our own security when it comes to police, fire, and all of that?
It's hard to say which is our money and which is not, because a lot of times, local police stations can apply for grants from the federal government to enforce federal laws, like especially with the drug war. But you're indirectly paying for that money anyways through your income tax, your federal income tax, for example. So it's hard to say like which money is being paid for by the county. You have to remember what the county is. That's still just, they're just taking money from people who live here and saying, now we're the county.
Okay, well, as far as a money model, because I want to try to keep this as simple as possible, so if a 4-year-old is at home, they can follow us, which is typically the only audience that finds me interesting. However, let's take this back down to a simple, basic. Federal government, thinking only of the money, they have the big pot of money. They send their big pot of money, broken down a couple of different ways, out to the states. That's your medium-sized pots of money. The states at that point take that money, they use some of it for their own functions, but then they delegate small, little pots of money to the county. In essence, would you say that's how this money trail works?
That's how it works. I mean, people, they apply for grants and they, try to get as much money as you can.
Okay, and in essence, this big pot of money that the United States government starts off with is our tax dollars.
Yeah.
Okay, now, however, every step of the way, like I said, trying to keep this simple so people can follow at home, big bucket of money made from tax dollars at the federal level. Then it's sent down to the states. That money is then broken down. However, states need more money than they're getting from the federal government to function, so they have their own separate state tax. Now that adds to their medium pots. Down to the county level, certain functions inside the county have their own tax, not added up at the very top, not added at the state level, at their level, to make up their shortfall, and this is how we get the different levels of taxes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, just like I said, wanted to make that simple because here's the next complicated question. At the end of the day, do you think how we function now, and this is, question for voters thinking about going to the ballot box, how we function now, is it a way that keeps these pots of money safe for a rainy day, or have we already emptied them and are scrambling to figure out how we're going to cover the shortfall?
No, the way I see it is that we're essentially trading our freedom for money. I mean, we're selling it. We're selling our freedom for money. Because whenever the federal government gives money, there's always strings attached. Like the highway fund. The highway, when they give you money to build roads, they say, but you cannot, your drinking age must be 21. That's part of the deal. If you drop it to 18, we're going to take the money back. So essentially what we do is we sell our freedom and we sell our autonomy and our sovereignty by saying, okay, we want the money. So we'll do whatever you say. Just give us the money.
Okay. Now, I want to take this back to the issues at hand because there are a lot of issues this year. Let's talk about Maui County. As a whole, it does receive some sort of stipend, some sort of fund, some sort of grant from the federal level each and every single year, correct?
Wait, say that again?
Okay. Maui County does in part operate under federal subsidized funds.
Yeah. They get money from the government, yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, grants.
Yep, grants, things like that. All right. Now, out of that money they take, this is the things that we have to spend on. Parks and recreation, roads, docks, airports, municipalities. Have I missed any properties that county funds are responsible for maintaining and making sure are in working order?
Well, the water, sewage and stuff like that.
Okay, so we
waste. I mean, there's a lot of things that they do.
Really? Like, how big is this list? And like I said, I'm playing dumb here because honestly, I don't know how big is the list of services that are actually, stuff we take for granted every day. Hey, I flushed my poop away and it's gone. That's actually done by the county, right?
I think, yeah, they're involved.
Involved in this? Wow. Because, I watch the History Channel from time to time, and you've seen that show, Life After People and stuff, and it always gives you the illusion that if we shut down all of this infrastructure in one day, the human race screwed as we know it the very next day. But is that the reality? I mean, let's talk about county stuff and county infrastructures. Take one, for example, that is very, very important to every human alive on this planet. Water. Water infrastructure of Maui, is it sound?
Well, I know that we're violating EPA rules with the, the injection wells or whatever. Are you familiar with?
Deep water injection. That's basically where we take our sewage and insert it under the sea at a level that we deem safe.
Yeah, I guess that's how it works. But apparently, the EPA says that it's not safe, and I think they either fined or sued the county.
All right, well, just to make a dumb analogy here, but think about this, not you as a person politically, but you just as a person in general. If you're swimming in somebody's pool, and I dive to the bottom of the deep end and poo, are you still going to feel safe being in the same water?
I would not, no.
Now, it doesn't change your opinion if I did the exact same act at the top of the water, correct?
No, I mean, there's still poop in there, right?
Okay, so just as a dumb thing issue here, don't you think that it kind of makes sense that we shouldn't be putting the poo in the water?
Yeah, well here's the thing. We even might have to start looking at, like, recycling water, like they're doing in Singapore. I mean, that, and maybe not now, but in the future, we're going to have to start thinking about, recycling water.
Okay. Well, a lot of people say, oh, well, we already do that. I see the big water trucks that are going around saying reuse water. But this is what we call non-potable water.
I'm talking about drinking sewage. I mean, turning sewage into water that can be drank.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying in Singapore.
They're trying to drink sewage water.
It may come to that. I mean, think about it. If the population growth, you know what I mean? Like maybe in 100 years, I don't know. But I'm just saying it might be something we need to think about in the future.
Yeah, well, I mean, like 5 years down the road, water infrastructure on Maui, we're talking about a decaying old system with old pipes that are prone to damage and destruction, correct?
Yeah, well, think about this. The HCNS, they still use way too much water. I mean, they use more water than the rest of us, and they're using this is based on contracts that were signed a long time ago. What gives them the right to have all this water for cheaper than the rest of us can get it? I don't understand that part.
I don't either. So moving on from water, let's go to another utility. County roads. All right. Now, for the sake of argument, I do have to lay out the playing field completely honestly. Some roads here are state and federal maintained. That means that the funds and the maintenance to do those are started or initiated at a state level. That would be the highways and things like that. Other roads, ancillary roads, secondary roads, or as we like to say in the South, back roads. Back roads are maintained by county people. When it comes to the roads of Maui County, have we been doing a good job of making them safe?
Well, here's my view. I reject government road building completely. And this is kind of funny because you have people on one hand they're saying, we're talking about global warming and the impact that humans have had on the situation, but they refuse to acknowledge the fact that government road building is what caused, something like 250 million cars to be on the road that otherwise wouldn't be there.
Wow.
Other forms of transportation would have had time to, really flourish. Suburbia would be out of the question. You would have to live closer to work. And in California, they decided, oh well, we don't want to look like New York, so we're gonna make a limit on how high you can build your building. But there's economic consequences to government regulations, and the consequence of that is urban sprawl. So they just built outwards. They couldn't go up, so now every square inch is covered by a road.
Yeah, and a lot of people would say that Maui County has made the same mistake by limiting the amount of growth that we allow. And then, of course, it falls back to, well, it's not the county, it's the state, certificate of need, duh. But are we growing at the right rate in comparison to other counties across the nation?
I don't think that should ever be up to central planners. I mean, There's nobody who can sit down and say this is the correct and proper rate of growth, and this is too much and this is too little. Based on what information are they doing that? That goes back to the economic calculation program or problem put forth by economist Ludwig von Mises. Their government has incomplete information. You know, the only individuals can decide in a free market what is valuable and what's not. You know, government can't make that decision. Government can't say, oh, you know, a bottle of water is worth $1. The government can't determine that. If I'm dying of thirst in the desert, I'd be willing to pay $1,000 for a bottle of water. It depends on the individual.
So this is once again where mandates fixed, very rigid, very hard to fluctuate. Free market, very easy, very free-flowing, and the price is always adjusted to the interest in the product.
Yeah, I mean, it accounts for, you know, different individuals, because if you take a free market view, you have to understand that different people have different preferences. Okay, so, you know, if you're riding a bike, if you don't use the road, why should you have to pay for that through your taxation? You know.
Okay, so getting back to the roads, how, if I was one of these people that was a decision maker, and thank God I'm not, but if I was one of those decision makers and I said, okay, we're going to privatize road building, what would be the incentive for a private company to build roads if they're not going to make a profit off of them?
They are going to make a profit.
Okay, well, other than the actual construction of it, if I'm a company, I'm thinking about residuals, which is how much will this product make me now that it exists every single year? As a private company, if I build you a road and I say, well, I'm going to maintain this road for you for X amount of years, anytime that road breaks, and sometimes, let's face it, water main goes out, acts of God, terrible weather and things can absolutely destroy a road system. If I'm a company, it doesn't seem to me that the risk validates me saying I want to build and maintain a road for this government for X amount of money, because at the end of the day, it's eventually going to lose my company money. What would you say to that?
Well, that's not true. I mean, there's plenty of examples that we can go to throughout the world where private highways, in fact, are even being built. And the thing is, modern technology allows it to the point where you could put a sticker on your car that measures exactly how much you're driving on the road, and you could be charged by that, you know, by your use. Everyone should be charged by how much they actually drive, the weight of your vehicle. Bikers should pay less. If you ride your bike to work every day and you only use your roads once in a while to go to Costco, for example, they should pay less than people who are just driving around all the time on the roads.
But if I'm talking about, like, you know, and I know, very simple concept here, but let's grow it out bigger. If I'm talking about guys that do OTR, over the road transport, we're talking 40-foot trailers, tandems, things like that.
They're going to pay substantially more.
Yeah, but at that point, aren't you stifling or, I guess in a way, discriminating them being able to do business?
Discriminating? No. Think about this. You use the road more and you cause more damage, therefore you pay more. That's not discriminating. You have the option of not causing more damage. You have the option of using a less heavy vehicle, but you're not being discriminated against.
Okay. Well, here's another thing, because we're getting close to the end of the show, so I don't want to spend on this. Let's talk about another thing that is controlled at a county level. And a lot of people use it, but not a lot of people kind of appreciate what's happening with it. I'm talking, of course, about parks and recreation, okay? If I'm looking at Maui County and what we're doing going into the year 2015, because this election is basically how we move forward, parks and recreation, are we doing a good job of providing the public of enough public space that is fair use?
What is fair use?
Well, soccer fields, baseball fields, and it's open for everybody, communal use, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I think these things could be provided much better and more efficiently in a free market. Even a community could decide that they want to buy the land together and come up with funds together and purchase the land and do the work on it themselves.
So at the end of the day, as far as where we stand as a society, you know, the voting people of America, the voting people of Maui County, it should be about looking more towards personal responsibility than it looks towards government subsidizing your entire lifestyle.
Well, yeah, because I mean, the government can't really make decisions. I mean, how did they come up with the decision that we need a soccer field here or a baseball field here? I mean, how does somebody in an office decide that?
Okay.
You know, shouldn't that be a question left up to the community?
Okay. Well, I mean, I can kind of explain. Most of the time, they have no planning whatsoever. They want to grow an area, so they create these places like parks and stuff like that. So hopefully developers will say, "Ooh, there's a park over there. If I build a house on X amount of land, I can get X amount of profit." That's usually how the planning side works. It's we'll put the parks where we want the growth and then hope that the growth comes.
But there's always consequences every time the government intervenes in the economy, and road building is a great example of that. Look at global warming. Look what we've done to the earth as a natural consequence of the desire to build roads. Look how many cars are here in America. You know, hardly anybody uses mass transportation. You know, it's possible that if we didn't have this massive interstate highway system, people might be, you know, flight would probably be a lot cheaper. It would be more economical for people to just hop on a plane rather than drive from New York to Florida.
Yeah, can I just say something? I like your answer for one very, very good reason, okay? Yeah, I don't know if you know this. I'm a little bit of a geek, okay? If we had less roads, it is the year 2015, we would have flying cars. Think about that for a sec, okay? Less roads, flying cars. Which world would you rather live in?
Well, I mean, we don't know. That's the thing. We have no idea what would have happened if we did not subsidize the oil industry and the internal combustion engine and gasoline. If people were able to figure in the full costs of road building, which should include all the wars that we fight over oil, because we indirectly subsidize the oil industry every time we build a road because it favors the internal combustion engine. So we favor personal vehicle travel, you know. We don't if gasoline were super expensive or it was, you know, less economical to drive over roads, people would have to travel together, or communities would have to live closer together, or, you know, you wouldn't have roads to places that maybe they shouldn't have, like the bridge to nowhere, for example.
Well, I mean, you know, here on Maui, we have a lot of roads that go nowhere, but it's all very beautiful, scenic places. Some would argue that, you know, hey, okay, as far as a county entity is concerned, keep the roads nice and beautiful, and if I want to drive them and leisure along them, make sure that the sides are cleaned of grass and opala and stuff. Are we doing a good job of this as far as a report card? Are we maintaining not only the health of our roads, but the beauty?
I mean, I guess the roads are okay. I always think that, I mean, they could be privatized. Most functions of government could. But, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the roads seem normal, I guess.
Normal. See, this is how you can tell somebody.
I've traveled throughout the world, and I've seen really crappy roads. I've been to Russia, where the roads suck. I've been to Afghanistan, where they're even worse.
Yeah, well, okay, honestly, in Afghanistan, the roads are trying to kill you, so little difference here. And I mean, I'm on a scooter, and even Maui roads aren't trying to kill me. Okay.
Right.
All right, Bronson, we have come, though, to the end of our show. I got to thank you for coming back today and definitely going over some of the issues. Real quick, though, if we ever get a chance to, I want to have you in here because I still mean to make good on that invite we did yesterday with Republicans and Democrats.
I'm surprised nobody called in. I kind of was looking forward to a debate.
Yeah, well, you know. It's okay, though. Let's get ready to go. I do have to say thank you to my excellent intern staff, one of them who is so nervous right now. Her name is Kristen, and she's been doing a good job. Before her was Carolyn. They've been doing a good job. Wouldn't you say they're great?
Yeah, they're great.
Okay. See, she didn't even switch the camera so she could see you. So nervous, so humble.